G'day there guys, I just found out that my wife is my cousin and I can't accept reality. What am I going to do about this situation? It's Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Now if that was crazy, just wait till you hear some of these stories. Sit back, relax and enjoy, I think you'll love it. Posted by user ThrowRA Dating Friend. Titled, Should I, 27 male, tell my friend, 25 male, that I didn't realize we were dating? I know it probably sounds bad, but hear me out. In my head, it's a long story, but I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. Sorry if it sounds choppy. Also, English isn't my first language. Last year, I had to move in with my parents because I was having a hard time finding a new place to rent after a really bad breakup. My parents and I don't get along great for a lot of reasons, and it made everything a lot worse. So to get out of that, I eventually decided to apply for some jobs in other places. At the time, I didn't really want to, since I'd lived in that city my whole life and I liked my job. But I couldn't just stay with my parents anymore. I found a job pretty quickly because this hotel was reopening after changing owners, and they weren't finding staff easily. So I ended up moving here in October. In the beginning, I wasn't socializing much because it's really hard to find friends here when everyone already knows everyone. My country and region are doing well. No confirmed cases in town yet, but it definitely didn't help with making friends. I've also been pretty busy because I decided to buy a house. It just kinda happened because my boss knew the previous owners, and it was super cheap since it needed a lot of work. But it definitely made this move feel very permanent. Then in May, this guy, let's call him Eric, and I got stuck in the social distancing queue outside the pharmacy together, and we started talking. I told him I was new, and he invited me to a barbecue with his friends. Not gonna lie, I'm not great with new people, but they made me feel welcome, and were all very nice. After that, we just kept hanging out. Mostly me and Derek, which I thought was because he was quite careful during these times, and only saw his big group of friends outside. Plus, we were the only two who weren't in a relationship or had kids, so it made sense in my head that we were alone a lot. I would cook him dinner and lunch, as I'm a chef, and he would show me great hiking places and help out a lot with renovations on the house. I also started telling him about the breakup and stuff, and even though I feel like I've moved on, it was still nice that he was so understanding. Like, I always thought that it sounded so cheesy when people talked about knowing, like, a week into a friendship or relationship that it was going to be different, but that's the only way I can describe what it's felt like. I promise now that I'm writing it down, it's so obvious, but I honestly didn't think much of it since I've never dated a guy before. Then like 2 to 3 weeks ago, he called and asked if I wanted to have dinner on my next night off, and also said, just you and me. He seemed kinda weird and formal, but I assumed it was just something else going on, and just said yes. To which he responded, it's a date then. And I assumed he meant it as a jokey line, because I have friends who have in the past. He picked this restaurant in another town that was relatively fancy that I'd never been to, and I drove him home afterwards, and he told me good night and that he'd had a great time. Usually we're not that formal with each other, but we weren't really acting that different during dinner, so again, I didn't think much of it. Then over the next week or so, he started sending hearts in texts, and would call me some pet names here and there, which is the first thing that stood out to me a lot. Then earlier this week, he grabbed my hand while we were out during his lunch break, and that's when it finally clicked. It really caught me by surprise, and I didn't know how to react, so I tried to play it cool and go along with it. Then yesterday, he texted and asked if he was still on for our movie night on Sunday, and I just said, yeah, of course. And I'm starting to panic a bit. I grew up pretty conservative, and I guess I didn't question my sexuality a lot, even when I got to university and a lot of other people were. I've always been awkward when it comes to that stuff, and I never really made the first move with any of the girls I've dated. But I've been thinking about it for the last few days, and I've realized I really, really like him, and all the stuff he's done never made me uncomfortable. Quite the opposite, actually. He's cute, definitely what I would have said is my type, but like a guy version, and it feels different than any other friendship I've ever had. Like, again, looking back, I definitely haven't been acting super platonic with him, and we've gotten close really fast. And if I'm being honest, if he'd been a girl, I would have also assumed that that's where this was going. I guess my issue is, should I tell him next time I see him that I didn't realize we were dating? Should I wait? Does he need to know? I don't want him to feel embarrassed that he assumed or think that I'm using him to figure myself out, but I also don't want to lie. I genuinely want to see where this goes since he makes me really happy. Well, I don't know if you have to out the fact that you were too naive to realize what was happening. That would embarrass the hell out of me, lol. But it's probably a good idea that you let him know that you have no previous experience with men. I think you would do well to look up the term demisexual. It's being attracted to personalities, not aesthetics or other obvious characteristics. Your experience sounds exactly like the start of every relationship I've ever been in. You were just hanging out platonically with a friend or coworker, and then one day it just hits you that you've caught feelings. The first time it happened with another woman for me was super eye-opening. Like, I was very open-minded and had a bunch of LGBTQ friends, but had never been attracted to a woman before. Kind of changed my orientation to bisexual for a while. Only learned about demisexuality within the last few years, and I feel like I finally have a label that fits. But F labels. Love who you want. And OP says, thanks. I'll definitely look that up because it kinda sounds like what I've felt before as well. Work kept me kinda busy yesterday, so I didn't have a lot of time to think about it too much. But I'm gonna look some stuff up before we see each other tonight. Really appreciate it. I would let him know that he's the first guy you've dated so that he doesn't take any hesitancy personally, that you're exploring your sexuality. Some people don't want to mess with that experimentation. Yeah, and I totally get that. A female friend of mine is bisexual, and I know she's been in situations where someone has used her and wanted to keep her a secret to experiment. So I want to make sure he knows that that's not what I want this to be. Like, if it ends up being something official, then I'm gonna treat it like I have my other relationships, you know? I love this so much because what you're struggling with isn't the idea of dating a man, but really it's that you care about his feelings being hurt or him feeling used. You sound like a swell human, and I hope your relationship and friendship continues to make you happy. If it feels right, then simply say what you've said here in a different way. Explain that last paragraph to him, and say that you want to take things slow because of those reasons. Best wishes, mate. And OP says, thanks, I'm gonna try my best. Update to, should I tell my friend that I didn't realize we were dating? So we had our dinner and movie night yesterday, and I was very nervous. Mostly because I was scared that how new it was to me was going to be a deal breaker. But Eric came over, and I think he instantly realized I was acting weird. He didn't say anything while he was helping me cook, but then we sat down to eat, and he almost immediately asked what was up. So I basically said something like, I really like you, and I want to see where this goes, but I want you to know that it's very new to me, and I'm not sure if you're cool with that. And he asked what exactly was new to me, and I said I'd only dated girls before. Which then led to a conversation where I couldn't avoid telling him that I didn't realize we were dating until that lunch. He actually got really quiet for a few seconds after that, and I was scared he was upset, but then he just laughed. Basically, he thought I'd been flirting with him for quite some time. Looking back, I probably was, just not intentionally. And all his friends had been saying like, he seems so into you, it's really obvious. He's probably just too shy to make the first move. He even mentioned some other stuff we or I had done that, I gotta admit, definitely doesn't sound platonic when he retells it. So I can see why they thought that, and ultimately they were right, I guess. And during that lunch, he'd apparently thought I was reaching to grab his hand, so he reached out too. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't have done it, because he said that he's never been good at making the first move physically. He said when he asked me to dinner, that was a huge deal, and his friends had tried to hype him up for a while, and that's probably why I didn't realize that he was asking me out, since he was super nervous. Anyway, we ended up talking a lot after dinner. He didn't come out publicly, aside from a few close friends, until a year or so ago either, So he definitely understood that I don't have a lot of experience. He hasn't had a lot of relationships in general, at least not any proper and public ones, since he hadn't come out and it's a pretty conservative area, so there aren't a lot of guys who are out of the closet here. He actually admitted that he'd been nervous to talk to me that first time we met, since I looked kind of lumberjacky, his words, not mine. Though the day we met, I think I hadn't shaved in a while, so I don't doubt it. And he also knows rumors travel fast here, especially when someone doesn't really fit in. So I guess he was worried that I'd fit the small-town conservative type or have heard all the gossip. The whole "it's a date" thing, for example, would never have happened between two guys who were just friends here. I've definitely noticed the culture, and it's something we talked about too, since being out here isn't always easy. So we might try to keep it low-key at first, and mostly tell his friends and some of mine. I could probably ramble on and on about him and what we talked about for a long time, but to keep it short, it was a really nice talk, and we wanted to take it slow, but we also realized we've basically been half-dating since May, so it felt weird not to make it official. So I guess I've got a boyfriend now. Thanks, guys. Edit. I really didn't expect this to get as much attention as it did, but I truly appreciate all the kind words, and I'm really happy that you found some joy in this story that just started with me being oblivious and confused. I might actually have to show this to Eric, because all the support is making me really emotional over here. Edit 3. Okay, last update before I log out. I'm very overwhelmed in a lot of different ways, and I think it's best for my anxiety to exit this now. I know it sounds silly since I posted on here asking for comments, but I'm just not good at getting attention, and I didn't expect more than a handful of helpful comments, since that's what I usually get on my main account when I ask about renovations. I guess I should have been prepared for the small chance that a lot of people saw this, but after my original post got about 10 or so comments, I didn't think much of it when posting the update. I looked through some of the comments and messages though, and I wanted to answer some of the main questions at least. Some people asked where I lived and how it could be so conservative. It's just a small town culture that I can't quite explain. Everyone knows everyone, false rumors spread easily, and there are some people who are known to cause trouble who grew up here and think they own the place. On top of that, just the general attitude towards everything is very old-fashioned. It's not hard to avoid, but still worrying. And I know this might sound very love story or movie-like, but in reality, it's just me realizing that I like someone and wanting to start a relationship with him. My life isn't very exciting and I prefer it that way, which is why I'm very happy I made this throwaway account so I can go back to my regular stuff. And while this is making me quite anxious, I don't regret posting it. Reading other people's stories has been very emotional, and I wish I could handle going through all of them, but I don't think that would be good for me right now. Just know I appreciate all the advice and love. I didn't want to bring this up because it seemed irrelevant, but after my last breakup, I was probably at my absolute lowest point, and I never expected that I would get to a place where I'm feeling this hopeful. At least not this fast. So again, thank you so much, and maybe I'll update this in the future if something happens. But right now, I'm happy to leave it at this. I'm saving this story. You met in a queue at the pharmacy, became best friends, and accidentally started dating. This is the stuff of rom-com dreams we modern-day mortals dream of. A real-life meet-cute in this day and age is practically unheard of. And his reaction to laugh and not be upset just shows how great a guy he is. This is a perfect update to a perfect post. I seriously wish more posts here were like this. And OP says, I had to Google what a meet-cute was. Maybe the name should have given it away, but I've already proven I'm not the smartest. And yeah, that sounds about right, I think. And he's definitely a great guy, and I'm very lucky. You are amazing. Have a great life. Posted by user ThoreauRA9067. Titled, Would I, 38 female, be an idiot if I got back together with my ex-husband, 37 male, who cheated on me 10 years ago? My ex, who we'll call Mike, and I were together since we were 14 and got married at 22. We have 2 kids together, 15 female and 11 male. My ex's work takes him all over the country for a week every quarter. In one of those trips, he hooked up with one of his coworkers. I never thought he could do something like that because our relationship was really solid. He confessed immediately after he got home. I actually would have never found out if he didn't. He begged me for forgiveness, said that he still loved me, and it was a lapse in judgment, but said that he would understand if I wanted a divorce, which is what eventually happened. It was very amicable, and he actually gave me more than I expected. House, child support, alimony. It was a slow process, but over the years we became friends again and have a good co-parenting dynamic. Mike's a great father, and the kids still love him. I got married 3 years after, and he was actually very supportive. I divorced my second husband 2 years ago because he changed his mind on kids. I want one last baby. Since the lockdown, Mike has been over frequently. At this point, our relationship is so good, we don't need to enforce any of the set visits and such. Well, things have been getting hot between us for the last few months, and we started having sex. I'm a woman with needs too, and to be very honest with you guys, he's still the best guy I've been with after all these years. It's like our bodies were made for each other. He's always joked that we were like prime Pippin and Jordan in bed, and when he said that again, it felt like we were back 10 years ago when we were still together. It was supposed to be just physical, but here we are. Just a few hours ago, he brought up the idea of us getting back together. He gave me the most genuine speech about how stupid he was the night he cheated, and how he never stopped loving me in the last 10 years. I was speechless and couldn't say anything, so he just gave me his usual teethy smile and said, "It's okay, I'll wait," before driving home. Now I'm lying here in bed typing this out. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I didn't love him. I'd be lying if I said the last few months weren't the happiest I've been in years. And I would be lying if I said I never forgave him for cheating. I've told him years ago that I already did. If I had to decide right now, I'd jump out of bed and drive to his house and bring him home. It's taking all my willpower not to do so. I love him. However, I also want to think with my brain here. Pros of taking him back? He's a great dad, and the kids would have him around more. He's a great provider, and he says he still wants kids, and I still love him. Cons? I don't know yet, but maybe some of you can help me with that. Any advice on how I should proceed? Edit, I made the first move when we started sleeping together. He made a big mistake and has spent 10 years paying for it. The main question you need to ask yourself is whether or not that's enough. You are the only one who can answer that. It sounds like you trust him not to cheat again and that you want him back in your and your kids' lives. So, can you put it behind you and move forward and not have his affair be a constant dark cloud hanging over the relationship? That's not something you should answer late at night in the middle of a rush of emotions. It's something you need to have an honest and open discussion with him about. Not trying to spare his feelings or be a nice person, but based on what you feel deep in your gut. It would probably be best to have that discussion in a marriage counselor's office and have a professional help both of you walk through your feelings and the situation. Usually I'm hard against cheaters, but this guy gets an exception. 1. He admitted to you. That speaks volumes to the type of man he is. He loves you that much that even if it hurt you at the time, he still was going to be honest. And 2, as a man, when we want one woman, and we put it all on the line like that, chances are we are ready to settle with her. This guy said he'd wait. That crap was like stuff you only see on the movies. That's love. Shout out to that man. Also, they were together from 14. Unfortunately, cheating often happens in relationships like that purely out of immaturity and curiosity. If you've never known anyone else in a carnal way, and you've been drinking, even the most loyal mate could be tempted. I seem to have an eye for cheaters, as in I love to let them hurt me. And the habitual cheaters always find a way to make you to blame and insist you move on before fully healed. It seems the ex has not only let OP process everything and move on, he has given her a decade to do so. We only get one life. Spend it with who you love. What do you think would be best for your children and for you? If you ask me right now, taking him back. Quite frankly, I have half a mind to just drive to his place right now in the middle of the night to get him. Definitely don't do that. That's very impulsive and potentially reckless. You really have to put your family first. If you really want to pursue this, you should really take it slow. Like, this guy just told you that speech hours ago. Rushing things with him or anyone isn't a good idea. Doesn't matter how good the sex is or how chill he is with his own kids. That's like minimum expectations, to be honest. The fact that you can't think of a single negative thing shows to me that you are not thinking about this objectively. Whenever we are smitten by someone, we ignore any potential red flags or negatives with them. Even something like, this guy always forgets to clean his dishes, for example. It may not be something super serious, but it's not a positive quality. It's about looking at the entire person, warts and all. To be honestly, OP, it really sounds like you are in the lustful throes of a new relationship. Regardless of whatever happened in the past, you guys are in the infatuation stage again where you boink like rabbits, and you're willing to throw any caution to the wind for him. Right now with the pandemic, everyone is feeling lonely, and having a warm body is nice. He's being extra great with the kids, and your relationship is fantastic because you haven't even considered the alternative. To be honest, if I were you, I would pretty much put a lot of stipulations on getting back together. Like, for example, marriage therapy. You only seem to say that he said he made a mistake, but you never address any other factors. Was he unhappy at the time? Was the stress of homework and travel getting to him? Also, bear in mind, he likely can't travel right now due to the pandemic. What will happen when the humping like horny teens wears off? He's working all the time and traveling, and you pop out your third baby, which requires all of your attention. Yes, it could be that he did make a mistake, but you did divorce. He had to give up his house and kids, and now pays buku bucks to you. How is it not in his favor to get back with you? I really hope that you think this through. As great as things are now, after 2 divorces, you should know that relationships don't always stay how they are in the beginning, and that you should take things slow to avoid your life and your kids getting upheavaled yet another time. Update: would I be an idiot if I got back together with my ex-husband who cheated on me 10 years ago? It's been a few days now since I've posted, and Reddit has given me some solid advice, especially the kind Redditors who messaged me directly. I'm very grateful for this because it helped me calm down and not give in to my impulses. The morning after I posted, I texted Mike saying that I needed time and space to think about everything. He then replied with, "I've waited 10 years. I can wait a bit longer." My heart melted. When the kids woke up, our son was looking for his dad. He's at the age now where he pretty much idolized his dad. I get why though. Mike is an amazing dad. Our daughter gave me the stink eye all morning. After lunch, when our son was in his room playing video games, my daughter confronted me about Mike. She basically said that she knew there was something going on. Guess we're not that sneaky, and that she didn't want our fighting to affect their lives. She thought we were fighting. Now, the divorce affected her, but not as badly as expected. We made sure to get her counseling immediately after, and made extra sure her life was as normal as possible. I'm not going to delude myself and think she wasn't hurt by it, but I'm pretty confident in saying we dealt with it pretty well, or as well as we could. I then had the conversation about how we weren't fighting, but quite the opposite. We were thinking about getting back together. She thought about it for a while and said she was happy for us and hoped it was forever this time. The next day, I dropped my kids off at my parents' house so I could talk to Mike at his place. We had a long talk about how we felt about each other, what we planned to do about it going forward, and as many of you suggested, what he planned to do next time we hit a rough patch, especially since we plan on having a third kid. He told me that the night he cheated still haunted him 10 years later. He told me how it wasn't worth it one bit, and how it was the biggest mistake of his life. He said that if we ever hit a rough patch again, we would talk about it like adults. He even suggested we do couples counseling every now and then, even when times are good. I liked this idea. There are some details about our conversation that I want to keep private, but long story short, we got back together. We are going to take it slow in every step we take. We both agreed that our children would take priority over everything. He's not going to move in yet, but he would spend a few nights a week at home with us. Later that night, we sat the kids down and broke the news. Daughter didn't say much because she already knew, but our son was over the moon. Since we divorced when he was a baby, the concept of both his parents being together was quite new to him. They obviously asked questions, and we answered them. We are also planning on doing family counseling to help make the transition easier for everybody. Overall, I'm really happy right now. Mike made a mistake 10 years ago, but I don't hold it against him and have completely forgiven him for it. I know he loves me now and won't cheat on me anymore. I'm back together now with the love of my life and father of my kids, and I couldn't be happier. As I type this out, Mike is in the next room playing video games with our son. I'm not entirely sure what the future will look like, but I'm happy that he's back. Thank you, Reddit, for the advice. It really helped with our talk and how we proceed going forward. I think I'll stay online for an hour or so to reply till the kids are asleep and he comes to bed and it's my turn to have fun. Peace. It's great to see Mike has grown and that you could be so forgiving. My dad cheated and never came back. His choice. So your son will be lucky to have someone to show him how to shave properly. Stay well and may your love always grow. It wasn't easy, but I could see how genuinely remorseful he was, because he was always so loving towards me even when he knew it was all over. Seeing how great he truly is through the years did help though. And yeah, our son will definitely benefit from having him around more often, especially with puberty just around the corner. My ex was very hands-off, so they never truly bonded. I have an uncle whose wife divorced him due to infidelity. He basically did the same things your husband did. Gave her everything in the divorce, was as amicable and cooperative as possible when it came to sharing custody of their daughter, and made it clear that he had absolutely no interest in any other women. 5 years down the road, they remarried in a small backyard ceremony and remained married until her death due to cancer. Sometimes, cheaters actually do learn and grow. It's not the norm, but it does happen. If you believe there is a real chance that your ex is one such person, and if you believe that you have it in you to get past any lingering anger and resentment so that you can build a true partnership again, then why not give it a shot? Take your time, take him up on the offer to do counseling, and see where things go. Great update. I hope everything works out. I also love the fact that not once did you concern yourself with what your friends or family would think. You only cared about the people whose opinions actually mattered. Yeah, the only opinions that matter are mine and the kids. I'm not entirely sure how my parents or anyone else would feel about this, but they don't really know Mike like I do. Sounds like a typical dumb girl response, I know. No, it isn't. Sometimes friends and family will continue to hold on to the past and not forgive, and as a result, they don't look at the situation rationally or with the best interest of the kids in mind. I'm happy for you and the kids. Just remember to take time to rebuild the foundation of your new relationship with love, honesty, trust, and communication. Hope for happiness and success for all you in this new relationship. Posted by user ThrowRA201508, titled, I, 26 female, haven't seen my husband, 28 male, in 3 years. His sister, 27 female, invited me to her wedding. How could I emotionally prepare for an inevitable confrontation? My husband and I are separated, but I'm still very close to his sister. In April, she called to inform me that she was going to get married in September and that she wanted me and my son, 5 male, there. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, but I declined as I didn't want to risk being around the rest of my in-laws longer than I had to. I tried to tell her that I would send my son alone or with his dad, but she said as her best friend I had to come. I don't want to go, but I'm willing to suck it up for her. My husband and I separated due to him always working and me feeling abandoned after I had our son. His family, excluding his sister, who I knew before we even dated, were also a big factor in our separation and made the whole thing more painful. We share custody of our son, but I haven't seen him at all in 3 years. He has a nanny pick up and drop off our son. If we need to discuss something about him, it's done through someone else who works for him. He continues to financially support us though. I know seeing him at the wedding is going to be an overwhelming experience, and I was wondering if anyone had any tips on how to deal with it. TLDR, my sister-in-law is getting married, which means I'll have to see my estranged husband again. We haven't seen or spoken to each other in 3 years, and I'm worried I'll be overwhelmed by the emotions of seeing him again. 3 years is a long time, and you'll still have problems facing the man you have a child with. Have you considered therapy? As for the wedding, do you have any other friends that are going? I'm 34 and I still feel uncomfortable if I see my high school sweetheart in the streets, especially if he's with his significant other. He hasn't been my biggest love at all. It's just that certain feelings will never disappear, and there is no need for therapy for that. I'm going to respectfully disagree. Yeah, same. Moving on is a big process that I believe is healthy for us humans to come to terms to. It's normal to dislike change. We even rationalize it by saying it's okay for things to stay the same. It's true in some things, but not in others. Having emotions for someone you were in high school with at the age of 34? Feelings are definitely normal if they made an impact in your life, but uncomfortable? Nah, man, you're on a different path without them now. What they do with theirs shouldn't affect you in passing at all. I'd go to the ceremony and not the reception. Reach late, sit at the back and leave through a side door. Let sis-in-law know in advance your plans and let her know that you're coming to support, but that the reception may be too much for you. This seems like a good compromise, and gets her out the door so she doesn't have to deal with the family. Let the dad take the son if that works out. Maybe also have a companion go with you. One more at the wedding isn't going to hurt anything. Do you have a friend you could bring with you for support? If you talk to his sister about it, she may understand why and be okay with you bringing a guest. And OP says, a few of our mutual friends will be there, so I won't be completely alone. No. If you go, you need to bring someone that's just there for you. Do you have a sister, close friend? If you can't bring someone, I'd think very hard about going. You can't really prepare. You could be surprised and actually be fine with it. Alternatively, you could find it a little overwhelming, and it would be good to have someone there you can find a quiet corner and hide with for a bit. Lol? I can't believe this. You are having a son together, and you don't talk at all? How do you think your son feels about being transferred like this? That his mum and dad can't have a civilized contact? This poor kid is going to have a hell of a childhood. You have to end this immediately and get in contact with his father, wedding or no wedding. As someone who had supervised visits via a contact center and then had to have handoffs in public, I disagree. I would rather not have seen my parents interacting. Yes, it would be better for them to model healthy communication, but if the parents can't do that, then it's upsetting to see. They have an established way of communicating that seems to be working currently. Obviously it could be improved, but I doubt the husband has the time or inclination to put the effort in to do so. Update: I haven't seen my husband in 3 years. His sister invited me to her wedding. How can I emotionally prepare for an inevitable confrontation? Thank you to everyone who replied to my original post. Your comments were very helpful and forced me to acknowledge I had a bigger problem than just the wedding. I tried to contact my husband the day after I posted the original. Like always, his assistant intercepted and told me my husband was away, and if I had a message for him, I should send it through him. I ended up giving him an ultimatum of either meeting with me before the wedding or neither my son nor I would attend. I expected him to ignore it, but he reached out to me a few hours later, and we arranged to meet a week later. The meeting was fine. It was very awkward at first, but I got out most of what I wanted to say. He agreed we couldn't keep things the way we were doing them, but claimed he had no use for a divorce, so if I wanted one, I should file. This annoyed me because he said he would file when we split, so we argued over it for a while. He ended up reluctantly agreeing to go to therapy so we could have a healthier co-parenting relationship, but we haven't started yet because of his schedule. He also agreed to handle all matters about our son personally instead of through his assistant from now on. He's managed to stick to this so far. He also spent a few hours with our son at my place, which would normally never happen. My son was happy, so even if it was a little awkward for us, it was worth it for him. The wedding was last week, and it was a beautiful event. I'm glad I went. My son was ecstatic the whole time. Even a week later, he keeps saying that it was his absolute favorite day. We did end up sitting next to each other, and it was surprisingly nice. His family were on their best behavior, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law apologized for how they treated me during the early days of our separation, which was unexpected, but welcome. Things are obviously far from being fixed, but I think we can work towards a better co-parenting relationship for our son's sake. TLDR, I ended up meeting with my husband before the wedding like the comments suggested. We talked and agreed to therapy to have a better co-parenting relationship. The wedding was nice, and my son had a lot of fun, which is what is important. Well done handling that so well. Happy that it was nice for everyone. Who initiated the separation? What motivated the separation? Is it possible he at some levels wants to reconcile? And OP says, me. I copied a comment from my old post, but this is why. I say, I don't think I explained it well in the OP, but when I say he worked a lot, it wasn't to support the family. It was because he was married to his job. I think in a year I would see him for 10 to 20 days, and the rest he would either be working late or on a business trip that he forgot to mention. His secretary would tell me after he was already gone. He works for his family's company, and he could have easily reduced his hours without hurting financially, but he chose not to. It felt like our relationship was just convenient so he could have sex whenever he was home. After our son, I had a miscarriage, and I begged him not to go on another trip because I knew something was wrong, and he went away, and then I couldn't reach him the whole time he was away. I don't know, he never mentioned it. From what you hear from your son, does he actually engage with him at all? Or is your son spending his father's time with some housekeeper or assistant? Yes, he spends time with him. He makes an effort not to be working when our son is with him. So there is good and bad news to that. More good than bad, but still. The good news is that he's capable of separating from his work when he really wants to. And he wants to for your son. That's actually very good news. The bad is that, while he is capable of doing it, he doesn't care enough to do it for you. Put that divorce through. It's likely that he isn't going to commit to that joint therapy because he has made the conscious decision to have nothing to do with you. While it's good that he isn't being that cold to your son, the fact that he clearly can put more effort in shows that he just isn't willing to do that where you are concerned. You need to separate yourself from that, as much as possible. Is he delaying divorce so he can hide assets and ultimately doesn't have to pay you out? I don't think that he would do that, but it has been 3 years, so I'm not sure. The man ducked out for 3 years. You had to go find him, and his interactions with your son were clearly detached and amounted to what he has to do to save face. I would suspect that he doesn't want a divorce for 2 reasons. 1, to save face in front of friends and business partners, and 2, it's cheaper for him to follow your current demands than going through a divorce and being legally obligated to, rightfully, pay alimony and child support. Someone who ghosts his own family for 3 years is not suddenly acting like a partner and parent because they want to, or even out of emotional attachment and guilt. Posted by user ThrowRALost281, titled, I, 27 female, have romantic and confused feelings for my coworker, 30 female. We have more or less been living together since the pandemic started, and she is openly gay. I don't know if I am, and I'm terrified I'll lose my only friend if I mess this up. Some backstory. I was engaged for 3 years to my ex, 34 male, up until late 2018. He was a terrible and abusive person that screwed me up. I graduated from a good university with an engineering degree, and even had a great job lined up, but stupidly decided to follow him into the middle of nowhere. I quickly realized I was trapped, and it took almost 2 years before I finally managed to get the courage to leave. Last year, I got an entry-level position at a tech company. Hard when you have no experience for 3 years, and moved away from my parents. My mentor was someone who I will call Laura, who to me is one of the most beautiful, strongest, smartest, and nicest people I have ever met. We ended up becoming close friends pretty quickly. I still cringe about it, but I told her about my previous relationship and how badly it damaged me. She introduced me to her friends and constantly invited me out to do things outside work. It was probably the first time I've had a friend since university. After the pandemic started and we all had to work from home, she invited me to work together with her at the home office instead of being confined to the suffocating bedroom that I am renting. We have been working side by side since then. It has slowly become more than just work. We go jogging in the morning, we would take turns making lunch and dinner or doing it together. After work, we would play games, TV, etc. She constantly reassured me that I wasn't being a pest, and she constantly insisted that I come over. I was getting butterflies when I would see her like a teenager, and I felt depressed when I was not around her. For the last few months, I've been struggling with my feelings. I don't really know. I still find men attractive, but at the same time, Laura makes me feel the same way. I will be honest that there have been times where I've thought about kissing her. But I'm terrified and confused. I am terrified that if she rejects me, it is going to destroy our friendship. My other issue is that, at work, she has seniority over me, and I'm terrified if I'm just reading into everything too much. This weekend we went to her family's cottage, just the two of us. We shared a bed and she asked me if I'd ever considered being in a relationship with a woman. I hesitated a lot, and then she immediately changed the subject. Since then, I've been panicking. I took today off, saying that I was sick. She pretty much insisted on marching over and taking care of me, but I asked her not to try and figure out my thoughts. But I don't know. I talked to my mum today, who gave me a completely different perspective and told me that I'm not gay and I'm just becoming overly attached because of what I went through. And I'm terrified of losing my close bond with Laura if she starts seeing someone. I guess what I'm asking is, what do I do? I don't really have anyone else to ask right now. So you were sleeping together in the same bed on a weekend getaway to her family's cottage, and she asks you if you've considered a relationship with a woman, and you're still confused about if she likes you back? My aunt dated men all her life and fell in love with a female coworker. Once her wife passed, she went back to men. My uncle, different side of family, was married to a woman before divorcing, moving to California and dating men. We love who we love. History doesn't dictate the future. It sounds like she's a very trustworthy friend. I think if she rejects you, as you say, y'all might still be able to be friends. The fact that she has asked you if you have ever considered being with a woman might mean she's gauging your interest. Honestly, I know it's hard, but I think you should share how you feel with her and see what happens. Best of luck. Thanks. I think she might be able to be friends if I get rejected. I am more just worried for me if I do get rejected. My feelings are a complete mess right now, and I feel I would need to take time away from her. Oh, I understand. If that happens, definitely turn to your family, and if you feel like you need a friend, feel free to DM me, but I truly hope it works out for you. Would you feel miserable if she started dating someone else? If the answer is yes, I'd definitely tell her. If she likes you back, you can explore this kind of relationship more. If she doesn't, she'll probably find someone else, which would also happen if you didn't tell her. She sounds like a good friend, and I'd think she'd be very understanding of your feelings and help you to better understand them. Regardless of what you decide to do, I wish you luck. Yeah, I would absolutely be crushed if she started dating someone else. You're right. Thanks. I'm gonna go tell her. And back to the post, OP says, "Thank you all. I'm going to go tell her now. I pray it goes the way I hope it will." Updates. I told her I would be open to a relationship with a woman, and we kissed and it was fine. However, she wants to take things very slowly, so we're going to have a date this week. She also wants me to sort out my feelings and make sure this is really what I want. She also told me that dating a woman is completely different than being with a man. She told me she doesn't want to rush into anything, as I am confused by dating someone of my same gender. She also told me to think long and hard about this. She pointed out that she knows my family is quite religious and asked what would I do if they rejected the idea of me dating a woman. She also said for now we need to keep this quiet. During work hours, we need to be 100% professional and focus on work among other things, which I agreed with. She also said that if I am unable or uncomfortable with things like intimacy, being seen with another woman, etc., they would be deal breakers. However, she said if I do realize I am not bi, then we can stay friends and just keep doing what we've been doing for a while, and it would be fine with her. I am a big mess of emotions right now. So thank you, Reddit, for giving me the final push to confess. Update. I have romantic and confused feelings for my coworker. We have more or less been living together since the pandemic started, and she is openly gay. I don't know if I am, and I am terrified that I will lose my only friend if I mess this up. I wanted to say thank you, all you guys who gave me a push to try something that I was on the fence about. For the first time in a long time, I feel happy and content. I managed to sort my feelings out and realized that this is what I want. We went on a few dates and it went well. Nothing huge, but we are both very leery of the pandemic. But I was able to present myself as her girlfriend to her circle of friends, and I had no issue with that. Most of her friends were very supportive. Last night, I pretty much told Laura everything I had said in my Reddit post, and she fully accepted what I said and seemed happy. I am also really glad I told her, because apparently after the cottage, she felt that I was not interested in her as anything more than a friend, and was going to move on emotionally. She also has given me a drawer, a copy of her house keys, and a toothbrush, and has told me I can stay whenever I want. And if I really want, I could just move in since we've basically been living together almost since the pandemic started. I will be honest, I also realized that I don't know a whole lot about Laura, and she was completely comfortable telling me anything and everything, which made me feel very comfortable. We also talked about work, and she said she's going to transfer to a different team just to avoid any complications from that. I also told my parents about what is happening, and my mom was okay with it. However, my dad was extremely supportive and told me that it didn't matter. I am his daughter, and that is all that matters. The only thing still bothering me revolves around intimacy and sex, which are things I don't know about. I told Laura about my confusion around that, and she has assured me not to worry, and when the time comes, it will be fine. I'm probably rushing into stuff too much, but I feel happy for the first time. So, thank you for helping me, Reddit. Laura wants to take it slow because you are new to these feelings. She is doing the right thing. There is no need to stress about sex all the time. You should only start when you're ready. And even when ready, make sure to take it slow to make sure you are comfortable. Yeah, she's been very supportive about the sex stuff. I explained I basically haven't done anything intimate or sex in a long time, and even when I was having sex with my ex-fiancé near the end of our relationship, it was not a happy experience. I jokingly asked her what sex was like for two women, and she told me not to think or worry about that for a while. So happy for you. I hope you don't feel pressured to label yourself as anything either. The way I see it, as long as you are happy in your relationship, it shouldn't matter what your sexuality is. Nobody fits perfectly into a label, and I hope you feel comfortable just being yourself and not worrying if you are bi or gay or pan or anything else in the spectrum. Enjoy your new relationship. And OP replies, "It's funny, when I told her that I was into her, I said I'm bisexual, and she pretty much told me that it doesn't matter. She also mentioned that she personally is not a fan of being labeled a lesbian, as it means to some people she is different. I really don't know a whole lot about the LGBT+, and as far as I know, she doesn't seem to care about that stuff much." Posted by user ThrowRA3948838, titled, "My 37 female, husband 33 male, is on a cheating subreddit, and I don't know if I should be mad. My husband and I have been married for a little over a year, and I just found his porn Reddit username on his desktop. The username he uses specifically to look at porn, which I knew he had. That's not a problem. We had discussed when we were dating that viewing porn isn't a problem, and we're both open about doing it, but I was clear that messaging people and chatting, unless I know about it, is a no-no. He's been traveling a lot for work, and I'm at home with our kids, and I've been feeling pretty insecure and a bit suspicious. He suddenly got really obsessed with losing weight and started a crash diet, and I've also been feeling pretty unwanted sexually. That, with him being away so often, just made me feel a little uneasy. I'm not saying it's right to go snooping, but I found his username on his desktop. It pops up when asked to log in, and searched for it. The only comments he has, on a years-old account, are from about a week ago, when he's commented several times on a subreddit specifically for messaging people on Kik, as well as a few others. They're comments like, "I'd love to smash you and risk getting caught by my wife," "I'm sneaking away from my wife to look at you," etc. Who knows if there are private messages that continue the conversation. He was away all last week, and I think he made these comments right before he left. I don't necessarily think it means he's physically cheating. I don't think these women are local, and there is no indication they live anywhere near to where he was traveling. But obviously the idea of being sneaky and doing it behind my back is a turn-on for him. I feel really hurt and confused. On one hand, it may be innocent, in that it's just a stupid fantasy that he has no intention of acting on, but it also makes me even more suspicious to find out if there are other things that I don't know about. I don't really want to keep digging, but I want to know. Should I ask him about it? Pretend that I don't know and keep snooping? Catfish or pina colada song him? I don't know what to do, but I feel like I can't trust him right now, and I also feel like a big pile of unsexy dog poop. Yenvima quotes, "I was clear that messaging people and chatting, unless I know about it, is a no-no." He knew that messaging people was stepping over the line for you, but he did so anyway. You need to have a conversation with him about this. Don't catfish him. It's immature and it'll just make matters worse. If he blames you for snooping, he's just redirecting blame from him to you and changing the conversation. He knows he's in the wrong. Stand your ground and confront him. I think you're right. All of the petty, sneaky thoughts went through my head, but I think I'd rather own up to my dishonesty, snooping, and insecurity than be childish and petty. Best case scenario, we can strengthen our relationship if we can both be honest with each other. Worst case scenario, I get out with my self-respect. My boyfriend has always told me that snooping is justified when you find something that's worth snooping for. We've always had a very trusting and happy relationship and never felt the need to snoop. Don't feel guilty for trusting your gut and knowing your worth. This might not help in any way, but if he's messaging people on Kik that he found on Reddit, he's probably messaging men pretending to be women. Lol, that actually does make me feel a bit better. This actually happened to me. Husband of 2 years got busted in this similar manner. I was never a snoop, but it auto-popped up information and it was instantly suspicious. He was moonlighting as a woman. He was messaging other straight, married men online. Through Kik, Messenger, an app that gives fake numbers, and his personal phone, meeting in public for sexual favors. His gift to me was an STD. Thank Christ it was a curable one. I was so humiliated and gutted. There were more meetups than I cared to count. It seemed about 2 a week. The whole thing was as bizarre as it sounds, and I needed massive therapy. He was instantly kicked out. What a mess. It might sound insane, but there were 0 red flags. He was masculine, but not overly. Worked a trade where his schedule naturally fluctuated and was fitting these rendezvous into his day. All of his feminine clothing was being kept in the area where a spare tire would go in the trunk. Honestly, I was heartbroken and devastated, even if it sounds funny. Happy now, and that's what counts. Hoping OP's situation isn't this bad. It sounds like a damn Dr. Phil episode. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Wait, how does he pretend to be a woman and meet up in person? I use the term moonlighting. He's a crossdresser. OP says, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I really hope that therapy helped. It totally sucks that there are just people in this world that have so little empathy for others that they cheat and lie. My only consolation is that people like that are very, very unhappy with themselves, and it's sad that they can't let people love them for who they are. Like, there's totally someone out there who is down with a non-hetero, non-monog thing. No reason to do it behind your back aside from shame and self-hate and some very painful inner conflict. Or just being a sociopath. I guess I think most fall into the former rather than the latter. Honestly, as hurt as I will be if my husband is the same sort and is a secretive cheater, and I too will need to continue with the massive amount of therapy I've already needed, I will feel worse for him. He has to live with himself without anybody truly knowing or loving his real self. You and I don't have to live like that if we choose not to. Update: my husband is on a cheating subreddit, and I don't know if I should be mad. To sum up the original post, I caught my husband commenting and sending messages to women on a cheating subreddit. The messages were explicitly about messaging around behind my back, and the only ones I saw were from about a week ago. When he came home from work and knew I was upset, but didn't know why, he immediately deleted everything from that account, or so I thought. I confronted him that night after the kids went to bed. He asked why I was upset, and I said I think you know why. He played dumb. When I finally told him that I saw the messages, he said it was just a few times and because he's bored, and I seemed distant the past few weeks. He said he never did, nor intended to meet anyone or do anything physical. It was just a turn-on because of the taboo. We had a long conversation about trust and openness. I said I understand the desire for something new, but I don't like that he went behind my back and did it with people outside of our relationship without my knowledge or consent. He knew that while I'm fine with and watch porn myself, messaging people crosses a line for me. I had told him so before, and I consider that borderline cheating. We agreed we had a lot of work to do, but that we can move forward and work on honesty and spicing up our sex life and being stronger in our relationship. He mentioned counseling, and I said I think that's a good idea. It ended on a positive note. The next morning I was still feeling sort of unsettled about the whole thing, and figured now is a good time as any to try to verify this info. So I was going to look for more evidence on his desktop, but tell him I did so. I knew he probably deleted everything anyway, but just to be sure. Well, it turns out he was not being honest with me. Mostly everything is wiped, but I found evidence of messages from throughout the past years giving girls his Kik username and a secret email address to GChat, posts about being sick of vanilla sex with his wife and wanting some side fun, etc. I didn't find a lot of them, but I found a few dating back to a few months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. We've been married for a year and together for 3, so basically our whole relationship. We don't have vanilla sex. We are both pretty kinky, and we've talked at length about fantasies, desires, kinks, etc. So I think it's just this fantasy of sneaking around behind my back, or a cheating fetish that he's had for a long time and not told me about. So I texted him and asked if he was being completely 100% honest with me about the messages, and said now is your opportunity to come clean so we can move forward. He said it was just the one time, a stupid whim. This is when I went full Mad Queen, torching King's Landing. I told him I know he's lying, so he might as well just tell the truth for once. He kept denying, saying he was looking through everything I could possibly see and didn't know what I was referencing, so didn't know what he did wrong. Y'all, I lost my damn mind. You shouldn't need to find the evidence in order to tell me what you did. I told him I don't believe a word he says, and the trust is completely broken now. I was willing to trust him and believe his bullcrap story, and gave him the opportunity to be completely honest with me, and he blew it. He admits everything he did was wrong, but still insists that it was just a harmless fantasy thing and didn't want to really meet anyone. To me, it doesn't matter at this point. I don't need more evidence. I know he's a cheater and a liar. He's begging me to give him a chance and make this right and stay in the relationship. I love him. We have young kids, both from previous relationships, not together, and I don't want to destroy my family. But how do I ever trust him again? I don't know what I want him to do to prove that he's going to be honest. It seems like I can't trust anything he says now. The worst part is that I lost my very good job in March, and now I'm home with our kids. Homeschooling while school is closed due to the pandemic. This was a mutual decision since he has a high-paying job and can't work from home, and someone needs to be home with them right now. I feel so reliant on him, and I don't know how to begin to get out of this situation, even if I want to. My ex did crap like this, and cheated in real life also. The first time I found him out was in the days of the adult friend finder. I set up a fake profile and some chats and agreed to meet. I met him, 7 months pregnant, at the bar, and he quickly said that this was his idea of a romantic date, and knew it was me the whole time. That set the stage. Every time I caught him, he would lie through his teeth. I would have texts, emails, and the other woman's testimony at times. He never admitted it. My ex was also emotionally abusive, so I really hope you aren't going through any of that either. 6 months pregnant here, and recently found out that he'd been cheating for months. This one hits close to home. Hope you're doing better now. I am very sorry to hear that you had to deal with that while pregnant. Unrelated to this post, I went through a lot of crap with my son's dad and left him when my son was still very little. I am glad that I got out when I did, but I look back at it every time. I was too scared to leave because we were having, or had, a kid together. And honestly, the earlier you leave, the better. I thought so many times, how am I going to make it as a single mum? But I did, and was happier than with a crappy partner. Of course, this can all be applied to my current situation as well. However, it feels more difficult because my husband is not a crappy partner for the most part, and I also feel really bad about putting my kid and his through the crap of a divorce and broken family again. But here I am telling you to leave because he cheated, when I should probably take my own advice. Good luck, and I hope that you're able to move on and mend, and have a wonderful life with that little baby. What a fudging piece of crap. I don't know what to tell you. He sounds like a total slime bag that will tell you anything you want to hear just to keep himself out of trouble. Seems like he cares very little about you and your family. Yeah. That's the way it seems to me right now too. He's such a kind, sweet person, and I thought he was a really wonderful husband and dad. It's so disappointing to find out that he's not who I thought he was. He's obviously not that kind though, or he wouldn't do this. He's just good at playing nice and sweet, but he's bad at lying and respecting you. Nice people don't serial cheat on their loved ones. Posted by user ThrowRakaz, titled, "My wife stopped taking her birth control without informing me." My wife and I have been married almost 9 months. We tied the knot last December. We came into the relationship both wanting children. However, we had mutually discussed and agreed to wait until we owned a home, I finished school, and we had our finances in order more to start trying. The entirety of our relationship, she's been on the pill as her preferred method of birth control. My wife is out having dinner with her parents tonight while I'm hanging at the house with some friends. She had ordered groceries to be delivered earlier today, and when they arrived, I, of course, started to put things away. One of the items she purchased was a pregnancy test, which was such a shock that I literally felt my stomach drop when I saw it. Immediately I called her and asked why on earth she ordered a pregnancy test. Turns out about a month ago she decided to stop taking her pill because she thought we were ready for children. I asked why she wouldn't get my input on something so huge, and she replied that she wanted to surprise me. I told her there is literally 100 different surprises that I would prefer currently, told her I'd see her later, and ended the call. Her period is due later this week, so unless she plans on taking it early, we won't know if she's pregnant for a few days. I am livid. We are not in a position to become parents currently. I certainly don't want to be bringing a newborn into this world during a pandemic. I don't know if it's justified considering we're both married and both eventually want children, but I feel absolutely betrayed that she would make a decision like this behind my back. We had even agreed that if somehow we got pregnant while she was on the pill, that we wouldn't go through with the pregnancy. I know she'll be coming home soon, and honestly, I don't even want to look at her right now or know what to say. Am I right to be upset by this? What should I do? I'm currently working a full-time job while pursuing my master's. I literally do not have the time to be a suitable parent. Edit, she just texted me saying, "I'm so sorry that you're reacting this way. You've seemed really unhappy lately, and I thought you would consider this good news." This is completely messed up, but what also stands out to me is her apology. Saying she's sorry you're reacting this way does not equal her being sorry for her actions. I agree, she's always been a crappy apologizer because she rarely thinks she's in the wrong. OP, she may be a crappy apologizer, but that pales in comparison to what she just did. What she did requires action, counseling for the two of you. I mean, you cannot trust her going forward. She doesn't think she did anything wrong, so she's going to need to hear it in many different ways. Show her info online about that term, reproductive coercion. Hell, show her these comments, as so many are rightfully calling her out. To her, you are wrong and she's right, and it's hard to believe that a grown adult can be that far off the beaten path. What she did and her reaction is a huge red flag, and red flags of that level just can't be ignored. Well, they can, but it'll come home to roost at some point in time if you give it short shrift. Any apology that starts with, "I'm sorry you're," is not an apology. Starting a family is a decision that you make together, not something you trick your partner with. The fact she claims she thought he would like this is just so asinine and manipulative. OP says she's not a good apologizer. No, she's just not a good person. Wendy Williams advised her viewers to do this. Your spouse was feeling insecure in the relationship and feels this gives her more power. If you think she was honest when she agreed to terminate an unwanted pregnancy, you're wrong. If she's not pregnant, file. Still file for divorce even if she is pregnant. Update: my wife stopped taking her birth control without informing me. I never expected the amount of replies I ended up receiving on my post, nor did I even realize the gravity of my wife's betrayal at the time of posting. I had a lot of people comment or reach out asking for an update, so here goes. I had made the decision that until we knew if she was pregnant or not, that I just wanted some distance to think and cool down from my initial anger and shock. I told the wife this, and spent a few days over at a buddy's house trying to process everything. Ironically, my wife's birthday fell within the days I wasn't home, so she's been extremely ticked at me too. She ended up informing me this morning that she got her period and asked if that means that I'm coming home now. I'm still feeling extremely betrayed by her, and although we did dodge the bullet this time round, I have so little trust in my wife now that I don't know if our relationship will be salvageable. I'd rather be a young divorcee than feel like I need to keep my condoms in a lockbox or something to prevent my own spouse from tampering with them. I'm not 100% sure if therapy would even be worth it, considering she's still infallible in her own mind. But I guess if she sees the light and genuinely apologizes soon, I would be willing to pursue it just because I do love her. As far as I'm concerned, the ball is in her court, and if she wants to try and make this right, it's going to take some actions on her part that show she's truly sorry and willing to earn my trust back. I'm not sure that even if she does make the effort, that our relationship is repairable at this point, but maybe after some extensive couples therapy we can figure out exactly where our relationship went wrong, where she thought that behavior would be acceptable. Thanks, Reddit. OP, please remember that there's a difference between apologizing for what she did, being genuinely remorseful, and apologizing for getting caught. And the classic, I'm sorry that you got upset. I've started to see all the fake apologies under a different light since I browse Reddit. At first, I thought they were badly worded apologies, in which the offender wanted to share responsibility. I figured out this isn't an apology at all. Same here. I've dropped a few friends for using this line exactly. Don't apologize for me, I'm not sorry. Remember, a real apology clearly states regret for the action. I'm sorry I made such serious decisions without your input. Acknowledges the impact of the action taken against you. I realize this has made you lose trust in me and see me as an unreliable and selfish partner. I also belittled you for accusing me of acting in bad faith. And describes a plan to prevent the action from occurring again. I'd like to put a plan for having children on the table and work towards that with you, but not sooner than we're both ready. That means no weasel apologies. No, I'm sorry you feel that way. No, I'm sorry, but... And never a, when are you gonna get over this? Short of that, you are over. Sorry, man. Your wife sounds awful, and I have to refrain from using a few four-lettered words to describe her. Posted by user ThrowRA-Anniversary1. Titled, My 27 female, boyfriend, 30 male, spent our anniversary with another girl because he was angry my ex, 28 male, visited my parents. 2 weeks ago, it was mine and Mark's anniversary. We've been dating for 2 years. We had plans after he finished work, but he never showed up. I tried to call and text him, but he ignored me all day and didn't contact me until after 1 a.m. He was drunk and went on a rant about how I deserved this because I shouldn't have invited Jason, my ex, to my parents' house. I was pretty mad at him and told him I thought we should break up. He ended up apologizing profusely and assuring me he would never do something like that again and he was just feeling insecure. I decided to give him a second chance. To clarify about Jason, we had an amicable breakup 3 years ago because we didn't like having a long-distance relationship whilst he was away for medical school. My dad had a heart attack a week before my anniversary, and Jason went to see him since his mum is friends with mine. Me and Mark turn up whilst he was there. Jason was discussing some of the treatment options the doctors had given my dad and my mum. He left a little while later. When he left, my mum made a comment about how helpful Jason was. Mark mentioned later that he didn't like that Jason was there or what my mum said about him. But I reassured him that he was there as a family friend and not an ex. He seemed to be over it after that. Yesterday, Mark's friend Penelope mentioned how Mark had gone out with her and a group of her friends that day. I'm furious, because he told me he had spent the day at a bar alone getting drunk. Mark doesn't understand why I'm angry over this, since I already forgave him for missing our anniversary. I would suggest it heavily. He's obviously not ready for something serious if he's going to throw a tantrum, purposely ditch your anniversary to then lie to your face and say he was drunk by himself. Then his female friend broke the actual truth to you that he wasn't alone and was drunk with friends, while you were, I'm guessing, clearly upset and angry for missing an important date. He never tried to hear why your ex was there, I'm guessing. He wanted to punish you? If so, that's childish, and I wouldn't want to be stuck dating a man-child that would rather be petty than actually talk. We did talk about my ex being there, and he seemed to understand, only to pull this a week later. Wait, so you both had a talk about this, and you were okay with everything. Then he acts passive-aggressively and like a man-child about it? Yup. Yikes, honey. Leave. He can't pull this after you explained everything. There's no point, and he's definitely acting like a brat. Seems like Jason is a sweetheart, while Mark lied about something in a roundabout way of getting back at you for a harmless and somewhat benevolent action of someone else. Mark seems a little slimy, and can I have Jason's number? I don't have it, sorry. First paragraph, you said you invited the ex over, or at least that is what your current boyfriend thinks. Second paragraph makes it sound like ex just showed up on his own to check in on your dad. Your boyfriend definitely should have talked to you in either situation. If it was the second situation, then he is definitely overreacting. If it was the first situation, then he's still overreacting, but he does have some possible reasonable concerns, albeit also maybe from insecurity. There is more to it than just your ex being there. Your boyfriend needs to communicate whatever he is feeling or thinking to you. Sounds like the communication between you two needs some work. Like most answers on here, just communicate with each other. If you or him aren't willing to be open and honest with one another, then I'd recommend reconsidering a relationship together. Sorry for the confusion. I didn't invite him, but my boyfriend assumed I did. Is Jason still available? Because Jason seems like a wonderful human being, and your current boyfriend very much is not. I've done long distance, and it sucked, but it's a hell of a lot better than dating an immature lying man-child. Dump Mark, call Jason to express your gratitude, and ask to catch up over a coffee or something. Updates. After I posted my original post, I asked Mark for some space to think and went to stay with my parents. He was upset, but he said he would respect my decision. He did send me over one text after I left, which he said that he was sorry and he loved me. Jason's mum called me the day after to ask if she could give him my number. This was very random since he's always respected my decision not to stay in touch with him, so I figured it had to be something important. I gave her the go-ahead, and Jason called me later in the day. He sounded pretty irritated on the phone, and asked me to tell my boyfriend to leave him alone. Mark had been harassing him on Facebook all day since I moved out. He'd sent him some nasty and threatening messages, and he also commented on every picture that included me on his profile. Mark's messages read like he was drunk. Not that that is an excuse. Jason did block him, but Mark kept making new accounts. I was super embarrassed by his behavior and apologized to Jason and told him I'd talk to Mark. Mark denied it. He tried to say Jason faked the screenshots he sent me to make Mark look bad. When I told him I didn't believe him, he got angry and tried to twist it back onto me again. He asked me why Jason even had my number, why we were even talking to each other, and he accused me of letting him ruin our relationship. He also made a comment about how I should just go F Jason if that's what I wanted. I think my relationship is dead. I wanted to try to address his jealousy and how he handles it to see if we could work things out, but he just isn't willing or able to talk about it without getting defensive. The last conversation I had with Jason was him sending me a screenshot of Mark apologizing to him, but this just feels performative now. I don't really know what I'll do, but I'll post a final update when I've made my decision. Unfortunately, I don't have that update on hand, but if and when it's posted, I will cover it. Wow, Mark really let his jealousy ruin his relationship. How embarrassing. I snickered at his comments saying he's letting Jason ruin their relationship, when he is clearly doing that himself, and too self-centered and irrational to understand that. Good riddance. Yeah, your now ex-boyfriend is an insecure and jealous ass. Neither you or Jason did anything wrong. Mark, on the other hand, single-handedly imploded your entire relationship with his insanity. Can we all just appreciate that this is the behavior coming from a 30-year-old man? Tell me this doesn't sound like a 16-year-old posting. OP, you're too old for this crap. Making fake accounts on Facebook? So he's too drunk to be responsible for his actions and apologetic, but not drunk enough to text properly and go through the million questions to make an account. I got so embarrassed reading this. Making multiple Facebook accounts to harass your girlfriend's ex? Ew. I had to double check your ages after reading the updates. Your, I hope, ex-boyfriend is super immature. First, he ignored you and went out with another woman on your anniversary instead of talking to you and figuring out why your ex was at your parents' house. Then he starts harassing someone when things don't go his way. He's showing you how he reacts to conflicts. Imagine being married to this man or having kids with him. Imagine him taking care of kids. Anything goes how he wants, he blames the child. Makes the child miserable. He is not a good partner. Definitely not a marriage candidate. In no way would be a good parent. Posted by user ThrowRA Kid Dilemma. Titled, "My wife gave birth to a black baby that clearly isn't mine, and I'm divorcing her. But I'm worried about the relationship between my two kids and their new half-sister. A month ago, my wife gave birth to a black baby girl. We are both white, so she was forced to admit that the child was a result of a one-night stand last year. I've started divorce proceedings, although we're still living together for now. Between our two boys, aged 2 and 4, I've had paternity tests for them and they came back positive. Her infant daughter, and her having lost her job due to the pandemic, living together as amicably as possible until the divorce is settled, is an unfortunate necessity. Naturally, I have no ill will towards the baby, and I've been disgusted by some of the comments I've heard from family members, friends, co-workers, and others, all who seem to be fixated on the racial angle of this. As if the most salient part of this isn't that my wife cheated, but that she cheated with a black man, and that the baby is black. What really worries me is that my two sons might pick up on these narratives. They are too young to really understand what's happening now, but I'm worried that as they grow to understand the situation, they might grow to resent their half-sister for breaking up their parents' marriage. And worse, that their resentment might express itself in a racist fashion, under the influence of the aforementioned racist narratives. Any thoughts on how I should try to influence my sons away from that perspective? It probably doesn't help that we live in a suburb with very few black people, and their half-sister is really the only black person my children know. I'll tell you what my dad did, and you can use this info as you will. He invited my little brother, who was not his child, along with me to stay during the weekends. My brother wasn't the product of infidelity or anything. He's just my half-brother. My stepdad's son. But I didn't know for a while because my dad brought him along to the museums and water parks and movies, etc. pretty much any time I was at his place. My little brother was too, and he never complains. He loved my brother. So that's an option. You can have the baby come with your sons occasionally, and make sure they're treating her okay. And be an example for his to treat their sister. I'm no parent, but I think telling the boys to love their sister no matter what would do the situation some good, or at least to keep the message consistent through their upbringing. Thank you. I agree that consistent messaging is important. Probably need to coordinate that with their mother as well. Especially telling them to look out for her and help protect her. If they learn empathy early on, you might raise kids who do the exact opposite of what racists do. I second this. When my brother and I were little, we lived in an all-black neighborhood in Philly, and my mom had a talk with me about sticking up for any friends who might encounter some racists. I remember not knowing what she was talking about at the time because there were no other white kids around besides us. But when we moved to the suburbs, we definitely encountered some a-holes as we got into our teens. Then I knew what my mum's talk was all about. But I think even regardless of having a specific talk about encountering racists, they'll kind of just know how ridiculous racism is if they're growing up with a sibling who isn't the same race as them. Kids have to learn racism isn't natural. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood myself in South Philly. My mum sent me to Catholic school out of the neighborhood for a better education. What a joke that turned out to be, where all the kids happened to be white. I transferred to that school in the 3rd grade, and that was the first time I saw racism. My peers obviously learned it from their parents, but I remember feeling so hurt, even though I was white myself. Children certainly pick up racism from their parents and carry it with them. It's truly sad. In regards to the family and friends talking about the black man and the black baby, look these people straight in the eye and ask them if they would have been okay with your wife's cheating if she had slept with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man. Also, if you can at all avoid it, don't leave your kids alone with any of these people. You'll need to be there to tell them, stop talking about my kid's sister like that. I think I'll be saying that more or less verbatim. Go for it. Make them feel as awkward as they've made you feel. On the part about sleeping with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man, sadly, it does appear that it would have been less egregious to them if this was the case. They would never admit it though. Also, it's tangential, but as a non-American, the remnants of the one-drop rule in modern-day US society are so surprising to me. OP talks about how this is a black baby when the kid is equally as white as she is black, but rather than mixed, she is called black, completely erasing her white side. Not pertinent to the post, but odd to me nonetheless. I completely agree, but it felt weird writing half black, half white every time, and saying mixed would be insufficient given the specific nature of anti-black racism and sexual stereotypes. I've had 3 people say bullcrap about supposed black endowments to my face. Update. Unfortunately, my last post was locked, but I received a lot of helpful PMs from people. I'm particularly thankful to those who have lived through a similar situation or have family and friends who have done so, and sent me advice on how this affected them and how to navigate the situation. I'd also like to thank the hundreds of mouth-breathing bigots who spammed my inbox. The big takeaway for me was that I'd need to lead by example here, not excluding her in any way because of her paternity, so that she and my sons would see her as a full member of the family. Also that I need to be more active in confronting the bigoted and ignorant nonsense I've been hearing, and teach my sons to do the same to protect their sister. I've spoken to some of those responsible since, and made clear my feelings on this, and that she is to be treated as a member of the family. And that if I ever find out that they've said things like that to my sons or their sister, that they won't be allowed around us anymore. I've spoken to my wife about this, and we are more or less on the same page. She has been begging me to forgive her and not go through the divorce, but that's not going to happen. Even if I didn't consider the cheating unforgivable, I just don't feel any love for her anymore other than a platonic affection for her as the mother of my children. My sons are handling this as well as can be expected. The 4-year-old doesn't fully understand, but is upset by the change in the household. Thankfully, he's easily distracted. The 2-year-old is thankfully too young to comprehend what's going on, but has definitely picked up on how withdrawn his mother has become. They are both fascinated with their new little sister, so there's that silver lining. My wife is OTOH, isn't in good shape at all. She was depressed even before the birth, and now with everything, our divorce, her infidelity being revealed, and the backlash from family and friends, PPD, and the exhaustion from raising an infant, she is barely functional. She has been seeing a therapist, and I have been pressuring some of our family and friends to be supportive of her, because even if they think she deserves it, her current state is making it harder for me and our children. It's become very obvious to me that even after the divorce is finalized, we are going to have to live together for a while longer. She is in no shape to be taking care of 3 kids without someone else around to support her, and I'm not willing to deprive her of her sons by seeking sole custody. It's also too difficult financially, since she's lost her job because of the pandemic. As for the baby girl, she's healthy and fairly easy by baby standards. Since I've been helping care for her, I've bonded with her and discussed the possibility of adopting her with my wife. She can't contact the father, as the only thing she knows about him is his first name. And given our co-parenting situation, it feels like adopting her as my daughter would be the best outcome for all involved. However, there has been a wrench thrown in that plan. It was brought to my attention that there may be a way of finding the baby's father, namely by having her DNA tested by Ancestry DNA. If the father or one of his relatives has also taken the test, we may be able to find him through their DNA match database. If I'm being completely honest, I'm not happy about this. I've already started to think of the baby girl as my daughter, and having him in our lives would massively complicate the family dynamic. Plus, we live in Seattle, and she met him in Philadelphia, so God knows how they'd even make it work if he wanted to be the kid's father. However, I recognize that this is a selfish reaction. If we have a chance of finding her biological father, we owe it to her to do so. if only so that she has access to her paternal medical history and so that she can have a relationship with him if and when she chooses to do so. I've read a few accounts by children raised by non-biological parents, and a common thread is their desire to meet their lost biological parents, so that's that. We have ordered an ancestry DNA kit for her, and I guess we'll decide our next steps once we get the results back in a couple of months. I'm glad to see the pieces are falling in place for you and ending up as well as they can in these horrible situations. Stay strong and live your best life and be the best version of yourself you can be. Thank you. A lot of people can take something away from your post: how to treat other human beings. Not only the ones who have made mistakes, but also the ones who simply need a loving parent. I wish you the best. You really deserve it, buddy. OP is a great person, but I would not describe his wife as a person who makes a mistake. Forgetting to buy eggs at the store is a mistake. Fudging another dude and getting pregnant is a complete betrayal of trust towards your lifelong friend and partner. It's an unforgivable betrayal. You've just summed it up perfectly. Cheating cannot and should not be made into just a mistake. The way you are dealing with this with a level head is commendable, and that child is very lucky to have you. Many people wouldn't respond how well you are, and you deserve a ton of credit for that. Your life was thrown upside down, and you are still putting the baby's best interests first. I hope everything works out well for you. You deserve that. Posted by user ThrowRA78WDHSG. Titled, My Vegan Girlfriend Wants Me to Get Rid of My Cat. I can't believe I'm about to type this, but here we go. I've been dating my girlfriend for 7 months. She's amazing and we are super compatible in a lot of ways. She is an outspoken vegan, and she made it clear at the start of our relationship that it was important to her that any potential partner had similar cruelty-free values. Me, already being a pescatarian, had little difficulty transitioning to a fully plant-based diet. My girlfriend was proud of me for going cruelty-free, and everything seemed well. We became the vegan couple on our college campus. Then there is my cat, Mittens. I've had her for 3 years and I adore her. She's such a sweet and cuddly cat. However, my girlfriend was always a little apprehensive around her, and she blamed it on not growing up around cats. After a while, we sort of made a tacit agreement to mostly hang out at her apartment instead of mine, so Mittens never really came up again in conversation. Fast forward through all the quarantine stuff. My girlfriend and I have spent a lot of time together during this pandemic, and we've started talking about taking our relationship to the next level. We began seriously looking at either buying a new apartment together or having one of us move in with the other. However, after a lot of talking and planning, my girlfriend sat me down and dropped a bombshell on me. She said that with the next phase of the relationship, she did not see a future with me unless I was willing to give away Mittens. She said that she believed owning a cat is unconscionable for vegans because they hunt mice and eat meat, and because the very act of owning a pet is a violation of vegan principles. I was stunned. I told her that I was absolutely not willing to give up Mittens, and she had no choice but to eat meat, so I was reducing harm as much as possible by buying reputable brands of cat food. Plenty of vegans own cats and think along those same lines. My girlfriend got mad and said, "How much flesh does your cat eat? How many animals died to make all that food? Would you be okay with that being human flesh?" I got mad and told my girlfriend that I would have really appreciated her telling me about her cat opinions before we got serious. She went on and on about cats killing animals. I ended the conversation there. I was so angry that I left my girlfriend's apartment and I snuggled with Mittens when I got home. Although the mood soured a bit when my girlfriend sent me a link to a Reddit thread advocating for the extinction of domestic cats. I think it goes without saying that I am not going to get rid of my cat. However, it pains me to think that an otherwise wonderful relationship could be ending because of a difference in ideology. I don't even really understand where my girlfriend is coming from because, like I said, a lot of vegans own cats. Now granted, cat ownership can be a controversial topic in vegan circles, and I probably would not have gotten a cat if I had been vegan at the time. But I have Mittens now, and she deserves to eat. Yes, I've researched vegan cat food, but Mittens has some digestive issues, and my vet strongly cautions against it. I've talked to some of my vegan and vegetarian friends, and they all think my girlfriend has lost her mind. Some have suggested that it's not about Mittens, and my girlfriend just wants an excuse to end it. They probably don't understand why I haven't broken up yet, but I care about my girlfriend so much. I'd hate for this bizarre curveball to be the end of a beautiful thing. I want to try and work something out. Where do I even go from here? I will not compromise on Mittens, and I don't think my girlfriend will compromise either. She suggested to give it away? It makes no sense whatsoever. Will it consume less meat with another owner? Of course not. It's like boasting about your lack of garbage because you dump it all in your neighbor's yard. This is what I was thinking. It's not about veganism, it's about control. Absolutely. What this reminds me of is parents so committed to their religion, they will disown their children for not conforming, even though they claim to love them. Unfortunately, some vegans can find their ideology so compelling, they too would choose it before anything else. And in this case, she seems to have never even considered the fact she's demanding OP give up a cat that he loves. And whilst we're on the subject, OP, cats are obligate carnivores and should never be fed a vegan diet, regardless of health status. Here in the UK, doing so would earn you a fine of up to £1,000. It's considered animal cruelty. You can also get prison time for animal abuse in the UK, including feeding cats inadequately. As a fellow vegan, no, this isn't even cool. If she truly cared about animals, she wouldn't ask you to rehome your cat. It has a loving home. Her way of thinking is ass backwards. If someone told me I'm not a real vegan because I have a dog, I would laugh my ass off and tell them they can have their stupid label. The dog stays, he's family. Just like I'm sure your cat is your family. Yup, I came here to say this. I'm vegan and I see no issue in giving animals loving homes, regardless of the animal's diet, especially if your pet would be homeless otherwise. Don't give your cat away. They are family. I wonder if this isn't really about veganism, but more of her finding ways in an intimate relationship to express control over her partner. The fact that she doesn't possess the skills to be flexible, compromising, or negotiate with a partner is a big red flag to me. As a cat lover, I'm very glad you stuck by Mittens. I agree with this point. There must be more at play than this ridiculous cat argument. Something in the relationship isn't right, and she's expressing it in a ridiculous way, subconsciously or otherwise. Update. First of all, let me say thank you to everyone who offered advice. There are over 7,000 comments on my original post, and I have dozens of PMs. Frankly, I'm still pretty overwhelmed with the magnitude of the response. I did my best to read most everyone's comments, but obviously I couldn't get to everything. I would also like to preempt this post by saying, as many users pointed out, that my girlfriend's extreme views on domestic cats are not representative of the vegan and vegetarian community as a whole. I do think that sometimes new vegans can be a little overzealous. In reality, most of us are just doing the best that we can to not hurt animals. I did not expect to generate a big debate in the comments. So, we broke up, obviously. I would never ever give up my cat, Mittens. Many users say that this situation was about control, not veganism. And looking back, I do see a pattern of control on my girlfriend's part. I was blind to it, I guess. I called my girlfriend and said I was not willing to give up Mittens under any circumstances. And given the recent issues we'd had and our incompatible views, I thought it was best that we parted ways. I said she deserved a partner that shared her values. She then asked if we were breaking up, and I said yes. There was some anger on her end, but otherwise this situation actually went better than I expected. So yeah, that's really it. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice, it really helped. Kit Kat Has Claws says, "Good for you. The cat is being a cat. The cat cannot choose and must eat meat to survive. If you treat the cat well, there is nothing wrong with being vegan and owning a cat. What's her suggestion? We kill off cats? That's not vegan." She literally sent him an article the same night advocating for the extinction of the house cat species. So now we're left with the classic question of the free-range chicken or the organic GMO-free egg. Is she vegan because she's crazy, or is she crazy because of the veganism? Obviously not all vegans, but this lady is certainly off the deep end. She's mad that cats eat meat? That's gotta be the funniest thing I've heard all day. Sorry you were in the situation though. I was once in a zoo, and there was this woman in her 40s who wouldn't take her kids to see the lions because they are fed meat, and that is animal abuse. That's depressing. Not as depressing as vegans who think they can feed their obligate carnivore cats vegetable-based food. Posted by user ThrowRA-DumbQ12902, titled, "I accidentally found out my 28 male fiancé, 27 female, has been creating exotic art and fan fiction for years. I'm not judging, but when I mentioned it to her, she became furious. I have never seen her so upset. I am really confused. Me and my fiancé have been together for 6 years now. I love her dearly. My fiancé has always been huge into drawing in her free time. Frankly, she's really good at what she does. She has shown me a bunch of stuff in the past, and if I recall, she always posted it to her DeviantArt. Most of it is of video game characters. Some of her artwork is suggestive. Yesterday, I was talking to a coworker about video games, and I remembered my fiancé did some art for one of the games that we were talking about. So I decided to try to go and find it. Being lazy, I decided to punch in her username into Google, hoping to find her DeviantArt. Except, I had a lot more stuff come up. Google showed a bunch of pictures. I guess you could call them the NSFW version of art that she has done. I ended up clicking on them and being sent to my fiancé's Hentai Foundry profile. I just kinda shrugged and didn't care. However, in the Google search results, I also noticed a link to an archive of our own story with her username. This got me kind of curious, so I decided to take a peek, expecting it to be just old fanfiction stuff that she wrote ages ago. There was a lot of stuff, including recent stuff in her profile. Most of it was, I guess, what you would call erotic fanfiction. At this point, I found it funny, and when she got home on Friday night, I offhandedly mentioned what happened and how I found it humorous. She got very, very upset at me, and started acting like I caught her cheating or something. I told her several times I'm not kink-shaming, etc. She told me I violated her privacy and broke our trust. She said that stuff had nothing to do with me, and I had no business snooping. I tried my best to calm her down, but she was visibly upset last night. All of today, she's been very upset, to the point where she said she needed to spend some time at her sister's. I have apologized and told her it was an accident, and I have told her several times that I am not being judgmental about what she draws. However, she is still very upset. At this point, I am at a loss for what to do. I suppose I can weigh in on this, since I have been a hobbyist artist in similar communities. My work is rather more vanilla than what you describe from your fiancé, but I drew a lot of slash art, which can be seen as similarly weird by people completely divorced from fandom culture. The thing about these communities, especially NSFW communities, is that they are generally very insular and full of like-minded people. I'm talking in broad strokes, but the majority of online artists do not treat their social media in the same way, especially a website like DeviantArt, which is very specifically for artists and fans. Most of the people your fiancé interacts with on these sites and shares her interests with are likely online friends who she met through the content she and they create. Despite being technically public, interacting with others under a handle and having that stable foundation of shared interests with your audience is a very comfortable feeling. She will not be accustomed to judgment, as 90% of the people who discover her content organically will be due to a genuine interest that led them there. I liked the anonymity and thrived from these accounts being largely separate from IRL social media like Facebook, etc. But I gave out my usernames to friends that I trusted and held common interests with, and who knew I liked to draw, much like your fiancé clearly did with you. But it was wildly uncomfortable when other people started to find it through them, and I no longer had control over who, in my life, it was shared with. It doesn't mean that feeling was justified. It was public, and in all likelihood my friends just wanted to support me or were curious. And I didn't even have anything particularly suggestive in my media. But fan content in any form is widely looked down upon or seen as juvenile in the eyes of the general public, so I couldn't help but have a defensive reaction towards anyone who I saw as outside of these communities. Your fiancé clearly had work she was happy to share with you, which is great, but also evidently wanted to maintain that control over what you saw. It's ultimately her fault for not communicating that, especially if there were so few privacy measures in place on her accounts and all the explicit content could be found through her primary username. But if she privated that content, she would be creating a barrier towards the like-minded people and fans that she wants to reach with her work. She may also be upset you were showing her stuff to other people and that they may in turn learn her handle. But I think the bigger issue is that you described this discovery to her as something amusing. Both art and fiction are incredibly personal, labor-intensive time investments, no less so for the content being pornographic. She probably felt judged or ridiculed by the way that you relayed this story, like her hobby was reduced to something silly in your eyes. And I'm afraid backpedaling with the reassurances won't do much at this point. She will see your initial reaction as your honest feelings, even if you were only intending to tease her good-naturedly. It's different if you caught her looking at a specific type of fetish porn. She made all of that, probably poured hours into them. Her reaction was likely a knee-jerk one from feeling violated because you saw deeply personal work that she wasn't ready to share with you, of a subject matter that many people would find perverted, deviant, or weird. If you care about comforting your fiancé at all, I would ignore all of the righteous comments telling you that she is being ridiculous because it was a public account, etc. Even though it's true, and this wasn't your fault, that's not the hill you want to die on with someone you love. Don't apologize for quote-unquote snooping, because you didn't, but for seeing something that she obviously wasn't ready to share with you. I would emphasize you were proud of her talent and wanted to show it off, which is why you were Googling her in the first place. But be ready for her to say that she'd rather you didn't, especially anyone she also interacts with personally. Definitely discuss what boundaries you are both comfortable with her online presence going forward. And apologize for approaching her as though this hobby was something silly and humorous. I think giving her some space to let the initial embarrassment simmer down is a good idea too. Good luck, OP. I hope I could clear up any confusion as to how your fiancé may be feeling. I really don't think you were guilty of anything here, except maybe being a little tactless, lol. But unfortunately, there are a ton of people who wouldn't be as cool and non-judgmental as you are. Keep up that attitude and I'm confident her defensiveness will fade away with time. This is such a great answer. My instinct from this to add to what you've said is that OP also saw into a very private part of her life, her internal fantasy world that she may never have been comfortable sharing with him, and OP has to be okay with that. Even though it was public, he sort of just read her internal fantasy diary. If someone saw any of your internal fantasy worlds that are so private we never share it with anyone, would any of us be okay with someone seeing that and then finding it funny? Good luck, OP. Tread lightly would be my advice, and be very reassuring and apologetic for inadvertently invading her privacy. Updates. She came back after I sent a large apology message, apologizing for laughing at her fanfiction, and it was not done out of malice, and more out of awkwardness. We had a long talk about it. I explained I wasn't that uncomfortable with her keeping such a large amount of her life secret and hidden from me. She also admitted that oftentimes when she was saying she was working late in our home office, what she actually meant was she was writing and drawing stuff and just wanted to be left alone. I told her I had no problem with her hobbies, which made her happy. She also told me that she's so embarrassed because a bunch of it is self-inserts of her and some of it would make me unhappy reading it. I asked her to show me, and she eventually agreed. I read some of it, and it didn't bother me at all. In my opinion, to me, fantasizing about fictional characters isn't a huge deal, as it is simply a fantasy and not real. I asked if some of the things she writes are things that turns her on, and I told her that I'm willing to try anything at least once. Yesterday night, she actually sat down next to me and started writing while I was next to her on the couch, and she didn't seem embarrassed at all anymore. So I guess this is good. Thank you for your help. She was scared at how it would be received. I could admit that some of my past writing, I'd be kind of embarrassed or ready to get made fun of for it. Some partners in the past have not been kind. You showed a maturity and kindness to your fiancée that I'm sure speaks volumes in her mind. This kind of communication and growth I wish more people had. Congrats! Yes, this was a big crux to the problem. She was terrified that I was going to make fun of her and consider her a freak. She apparently tried to share stuff with people in the past, and it didn't go very well. Personally, we are both dorks, and I am so desensitized to stuff on the internet that I get that it might not be something that turns me on, but other people might enjoy it. Who am I to judge? This makes me so happy to read. Good for you and your communication skills. I'm really, really glad everything worked out and she's comfortable to share with you. I write fanfiction with self-inserts as well, and having the support from my boyfriend is really nice and makes me feel good about what I'm doing. Hooray for mature relationships. I stan this massive growth and mature communication, and it seems to have invented a new, exciting thing you can do together as a couple. Honestly, your fiancée sounds really cool. I'd love to read her erotic fiction and art, and it's opened up a whole new opportunity for sexual expression. I stan. Posted by user ThrowRakeSo, titled, "My parents falsely accused my brother of being a creep, and it's really affecting him." My brother is 15, my sister is 17, and I'm 23. This is really stupid, and it shouldn't have really happened, but it did. Now I just want advice on how to make it better. Also, this is the story my brother told me as I wasn't there. He was in his room playing on his phone, minding his own business. He got up to take out the trash. He came back to lay down in his bed. As he was laying down, he noticed the dog walking out of his room and he ignored it. Later on, his sister, 17, noticed clothes were missing. She went looking for it and found it in my brother's room. The problem was that it was wet and slimy. She immediately told our parents and they thought the worst. My dad, mum, and brother argued about it. Rude things were said. Apparently, mum said I knew you were weird, but not this weird. My dad said I raised a predator. In the end, my parents asked me to pick him up and let him stay with me for a couple of days. When I picked him up, he didn't say anything and just sat in silence. He spent the entire time in his room that he was staying in. He only came out for dinner. He skipped breakfast and lunch. His eyes were always red when he came out, so I assume he was crying. I've never seen him cry. Most of the time when he's upset, he just has a stone face, so what they said must have got to him. Finally, at the end of the week, his parents called me and said they wanted to talk to him, so they came over. Before they came over, I tried to talk to him, but he ignored me. When parents came, they apologized to him. Over the week, they noticed more of sister's clothes in his room, until one day my dad caught the dog with my sister's clothes. My brother just said okay and went home. I tried to ask my parents if he could stay longer, but they said that wouldn't be necessary. Later on, I got a call asking me what did he do over at my house, because he's just been in his room all day at their house. Is there anything I can do to help him feel better? Advice would be greatly appreciated. Edit, little update. Good news. He can stay with me until Sunday. I had to lie a little to my parents to get him to come. I told them he should get out of the house because he spends most of his day sitting in one spot with online school. They didn't believe me at first, but I said it would be a chance to get him out of his room. They finally agreed. He was about to go to sleep, so I came just in time. I think the plan right now is just to spend time with him this week. I'm broke, so it's going to be mostly home stuff. I tried to talk to him on the car ride. I asked him if he's okay. He said he's fine, and we had a little conversation about his school, so at least he's talking now. He's in the spare room, so everything is okay right now. God, your parents are something else. So they're convinced that he's a pervert and are clearly wrong about that in the first place, but then they make him stay with you. Another one of his sisters? I don't know your family, but it would seem to me like they have more problems with him than just that. And that is just awful. He's 15. He doesn't deserve any of this abusive crap. I really hope he starts responding to your texts soon. Maybe you could take him out and do some fun things? To show him like you know he's not like that. I don't know, it's a really horrible situation. Her father literally accused her of raising a predator. I suspect OP did more parenting for that kid than his parents. I think OP was saying the dad literally said the words, "I raised a predator," talking in disbelief about himself. Yep, just as the mum said, "I knew you were weird." Your parents need to apologize to your brother profusely. Beyond that, I sadly have no other advice to offer. I can understand why he's upset. I wonder what kind of people OP's parents are to immediately assume it was their brother instead of the obvious answer, the dog. Who mistakes jizz for dog slobber, if that's what they thought it was? I've seen how much slobber a dog can get on stuff. They must think this kid is a geyser. No kidding. It smells different, looks different, feels different, and dries quicker. Definitely tastes different too. I'm really sorry for this one. What happened is the dog wanted to lick the discharge off the sister's panties because it's salty, so it wasn't soaked with slobber, just wet from the dog licking it. Oh God. So how's your day going? Your parents broke your brother and accused him of things they can't walk back. I would get him a therapist ASAP. Yeah, I agree with the broke him part. The things they said straight to his face and then brushed it off is awful. I hope he has some support somewhere. Knowing how the horrible things my mother said affected me, none of which came within miles of this verbal assault, that kid is definitely in a rough place right now. Even if the parents sincerely apologize, which I doubt will happen, he knows what they think of him and what they think he's capable of. That's a long road back. I wouldn't blame him if he chose not to take it. Updates. So I've been asked to update the situation. Many of you guys asked that I let my brother live with me, but I had to take him back to our parents' house this morning. The last update I gave was when my brother was allowed to spend the week at my house. That was last Sunday. We spent the first day, Monday, at my house just talking. He spent most of the time in the room. At first, he wasn't responding back. It was going nowhere quickly, so I ended the conversation by telling him our parents were wrong and that he's not weird. I didn't say it exactly like this, but I hope you get the point. He just had a stone face and we stopped talking. Tuesday, he still didn't really come out of the room. I offered to go to McDonald's and he just came out of the room to eat at the table. We just talked about random different things, and he wasn't really interested in the conversation until we started talking about my Xbox. We eventually started talking about Madden. He started talking about how good he is at the game. We finished eating and he went back to his room. Wednesday, I bought Madden. I don't play sports games. I play games like Cuphead or cartoon animated games. I asked if he wanted to play, and he agreed. I know this is serious, but Madden absolutely sucks. The game started cheating as soon as we started. The first thing my player did was fumble the ball, and he was killing me at it. He actually laughed a couple of times, and he seemed to be enjoying himself. We spent a good portion of the day just playing. Tuesday was pretty much the same as Wednesdays, but he was talking more. I was going to go to the movies, but the pandemic is still a thing. We eventually just settled to watching Netflix. He spent half the day in his room, but he's coming out more. Friday, I decided to talk to him about the situation again. I pretty much told him that I would talk to our parents to get them to understand why he was hurt by it. I also took the advice of seeing if he wanted to talk to a professional. He asked me not to ask them about it. He said it was just better if nobody brought it up again. I was a little shocked, but there's not much I could do. We then decided to go to a walking trail. At first, he didn't want to go, but I convinced him to come. We just spent more time talking. This also made me realize that I should talk to my siblings more often. He seemed happier. Saturday, or yesterday, was pretty much just us talking again. We decided instead of Madden to just play random games I had. I don't have a lot, but I think he had a good time. When it was dinner time, he got kinda quiet again. I asked him what was wrong. He said he wasn't ready to go back home yet. I didn't know what to say. I asked him if he wanted me to talk to our parents to see what we could do. He just said no again. I pretty much told him he could come to my house anytime he wanted to. That leads us to today. He is back at his house. I was going to talk to our parents, but I assumed he has a reason for not wanting me to talk to them. I know you guys said something about getting him a therapist, but he said no to the idea. I did call my sister to see how she's doing. She said she tried to apologize to brother, but he ignored her. I don't know what's happening with that, but one thing at a time, I guess. And that's pretty much how the week went. Overall, he seemed much happier than he was last week. I texted him, and he wants to come back over sometime next week. This part has nothing to do with my brother, but it's about me. You don't have to read. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm only 23, still trying to get my life together. I'm a firefighter, so I'm just glad that we get a lot of vacation time, or else I would have had to work. I know people are thinking if you're a firefighter, you should know what to do, and why did you ask what the signs of depression are? I was never trained on how to deal with somebody actively showing signs of depression. I was trained to help somebody who is in the process of trying to commit suicide, and that training wasn't that good. It was basically to try to talk them down and do whatever you can to get them to a hospital. I've yet to use this training. This is why I was panicking when everything was happening. People were telling me he could commit suicide. I know I should have kept a cool head, but it just felt different because it was family. They tell you not to panic, but I'm only human. I've been a firefighter for about 2 years now. Anyway, something else I wanted to say. I'm gonna try to be there for my brother and sister, but I make mistakes too. Somebody brought up the point of, when I found out what happened, what was my reaction? I'm ashamed to admit, but I didn't have one. I thought he was gonna get over it and everything would be alright. I only started caring when I realized that he wasn't acting like his normal self. That when I realized the impact of what they said and how screwed up this all really is. So to the person who brought up this point, thank you. This showed me that no matter how great my actions are looking in front of random strangers, the truth is that I had a similar mindset as my parents. I don't think he's weird, but I guess my time spent around them made me desensitized to the things they say. I don't know. I'm gonna work to change that because it's not right. So to everybody, thank you for the advice you have given. I see the mistake I've made and I'm 100% behind changing myself and being behind my brother. You're a great sister, OP. I would try to invite him over often, more so than just extending one forever open invitation. It'll make him feel more wanted. I'll definitely try to keep hanging out with him and invite him over more often. I'm also going to try to hang out with my sister more. I'm going to try to have a better relationship with the both of them. And you say I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Sounds like you do to me. Sounds like you care about your bro. That's all that needs to be done. Have you thought about introducing your brother to your pals at the station? Maybe give him a tour. When I graduated fire school, we had like a family day. We brought our family to where we did our training for fire school, so they all know my brother, sister, and parents. Your bro reminds me of myself when I was 15. I remember being angry and shy back then. I would mainly be quiet and just keep to myself. This made me a bit of an a-hole. I was falsely accused of stealing money from my parents, and it sucked. Talking about it sucked. When the truth came out, it still sucked. I can imagine he's just really angry with his family, excluding you, and also embarrassed at the same time. I doubt he'll want to talk, but playing games with him or just having fun sounds like a good way to keep a healthy relationship with him. Posted by user ThrowRama. Titled, My boyfriend, 35 male, drugged me, 26 female, with Benadryl because we got into an argument before our road trip and he wanted me to sleep the whole time. So on Monday, we decided to make the 8-ish hour drive back to our home state and quarantine there instead for a few months. Right before leaving, we got into a big fight because I wanted to stay at my mother's house for a while and he doesn't want me to, amongst other things that I won't get into. Well, before leaving, we decided to eat dinner so we didn't have to stop anywhere. Fast forward to our drive, and not long after hitting the road, I passed out. I don't even really remember falling asleep. I woke up one time for a while, drank some Gatorade which he gave to me, and then I fell asleep again. I thought this was extremely weird because I wasn't tired hardly at all, and we didn't even leave super early. I kept commenting on how weird it was that I was tired the whole drive and slept 90% of it. Yesterday, the tension eased a bit, and he made the offhanded comment that he wishes he could drug me more when I act out and argue with him. I ask him what he was talking about. Proceeds to tell me he put Benadryl in my drink and that's why I slept, so he didn't have to deal with me. He literally said this as if it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm still reeling from that conversation and completely floored. I don't know if I'm overreacting or not, but something tells me I'm not, and it's extremely screwed up to put medicine in drinks. I don't know what to do. Listen, leave now. As a woman who has been there and didn't leave when I should have, leave. Second, you can get evidence later. You have a phone. He's bound to try to talk to you. Get him to admit it later via text or something, but proof is not, or should not be, your number one concern right now. Your safety is the most important thing. Can your mum come get you? Can you get away from him to a public place with people and wait for her or a friend to pick you up? I've been there too. My ex started fixing me a cocktail after work every night to help me unwind. I'm not a big drinker. Maybe 4 or 5 times a year, you know? So I wasn't that interested in them. He would press for me to finish the drink, and I didn't understand. Then I noticed stuff floating on the top of the residue in the bottom. I asked about it, and he would say, "Oh, must be the ice maker needs to be cleaned." I found out he was crushing Ambien and other sleeping pills and adding it to my drinks. And yes, that made me more compliant in all the ways he wanted. I figured it out. Didn't try to get proof or call the police, I just got out. I often regret that I didn't try to document it and press charges, but at least I got out alive. Please don't stay with this man. Leave him. That is a very big problem. Now he knows how to keep you at bay, he may exploit it for his gain. Seriously, you need to go now. Drugging someone is wrong, and he could have seriously harmed you. This dude needs to be dumped ASAP, and you need to talk to a doctor and possibly police. You are underreacting if you are still with him. Update. Holy crap, y'all. I haven't been on Reddit since I posted my original post here, and I did not expect this. I had to make an extra account with a similar name to post because of the 48-hour thing. But I know a lot of people were genuinely worried about me, so I wanted to go ahead and post an update. Sorry if that's not allowed. Thank you guys so much. I can't even believe the support and response I got. I ended up calling my brother and telling him about it, and asking him how I should handle it. And he got in his car to come get me before I even finished telling him what all had happened. Him freaking out more than anything else made me realize that I wasn't overreacting. I didn't tell my boyfriend I was leaving until my brother was parked on the street, and I just walked out with a few things. So now I'm in a messy breakup situation where he's already tried to come by my mum's house, even though I told him I didn't want to see him and that I'd get my stuff eventually, both from his parents' house where he's currently at and his actual house. Things are going to be weird to figure out, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm totally okay. Thank you. I can't reply to everyone who reached out and messaged, so I hope you guys see this and know I appreciate it. OP, I don't want to alarm you or overwhelm you, but in all honesty, the period after leaving an abusive relationship is one of pretty great risk. So please consider taking some of the following steps to protect yourself. This is because when the victimized partner leaves, the abuser feels that they are losing power over them, and they may escalate in some way to attempt to regain the power. You've taken some really great first steps, and kudos to you for doing so. Preserving evidence and documentation. If at all possible, you should cut contact with him to the fullest extent. Take screenshots of every message he sends you. Document every date, time, detail of incidents, such as him coming by your house. Informing loved ones of potential stalking. Make sure your mum, brother, and any other houses or people whom he might contact are aware to be on the lookout for him if he shows up. Instruct them to call the police if he shows up at their places. Ask them to screenshot any messages he sends them also, and to not respond. Requesting a police escort. You may be able to request a police escort to retrieve your belongings from his house, if this is an option in your location. However, ideally the police would be able to retrieve them for you without you present, and ideally he would not be present either. Safety planning. Please be careful about this. Leaving an abusive relationship is a time of heightened danger. Consider putting together one of the safety plans from a Go Ask Rose. Scroll to the first 24 hours after leaving safety plan and work from there. Do not assume that meeting in public will be safe or safer. It is not. When an abuser feels that they have lost control over the victim, they may escalate. Documentation. The DocuSafe app, developed by the National Network to End Domestic Violence, is an evidence collection app that allows survivors to document and store information about the abuse. Survivors can document abuse by logging individual incidents, including any photos, screenshots, or video documentation of threatening messages, harassing social media posts, unwanted repeat calls, or online impersonation, among other abusive behaviors. Only use this app if it is safe to do so. Orders for protection. Consider using any evidence you have to file for an order of protection. You can ask a domestic abuse advocate to assist you. Tech safety. Some suggestions: get a new phone and number. Disable location services. Consider using a secure messaging platform such as Signal instead of text for a while. Ensure that your device storage is encrypted, and see if you can switch your computer, if you have one, to Linux. And another comment about this story. This is a classic example of what would you tell your friend or significant other or sister if they came to you with this? You get in your car and get them out of a dangerous situation ASAP. I'm so glad you followed your gut, OP, both posting here and calling someone you trusted. I'd encourage calling the non-emergency police line, if not to press charges, then at least to ensure your safety in obtaining your belongings. He deserves severe consequences for his reprehensible actions. He thought this was fine. It's not hard to imagine him escalating and drugging a partner to justify other desires. I'm so glad you're safe, and best of luck moving forward. Alright, that's where I think I'm going to end today's episode, guys. As always, I really do hope you learned something or just really enjoyed the posts that were put up today. Quick shout out to all my new and existing Patreon and channel members. You should be able to see your name on screen right now, and if you don't, then I don't think you're part of the club, and you really should join the club because it's a great club. And I want to thank every single one of you guys for supporting me in this journey. It really means so much to me, and I love you all so much for it. Thank you for helping me out. As you can tell, I'm now happy and healthy back in Australia. Thank God it's not cold like Ireland. I don't like wearing jumpers everywhere. I prefer the heat. Thank you very much. I know that's an unpopular opinion. Anyway, guys, I really do hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you later. Bye.